My name is Maggie Chapman. I'm 28 years old, and for most of my 20s, I thought I had my life figured out. I had a steady job in marketing, a cozy apartment decorated with plants I actually managed to keep alive, and a partner, Samuel, who I believed was my anchor in this chaotic world. We'd been together 4 years, lived together for 2, and though we weren't perfect, we felt solid, or at least I thought we were. But the thing about cracks is, you don't always notice them until the light slips through. It started with something small in envelope. One Friday evening, Samuel walked through the door, holding a glossy, cream-colored letter. His eyes lit up the way they used to when he'd surprise me with my favorite coffee after a long day. Guess what? He grinned, waving the envelope. It's my college reunion invitation. 10 years already. Can you believe it? He tore it open right there by the counter, scanning quickly. His whole body seemed to buzz with energy, as if that one piece of paper carried the power to rewind time. I watched him with a half smile, half curiosity. You should come with me, I offered, sliding a glass of water toward him. I meant it. I'd heard so many stories about his college years, the friends he partied with, the professors who pushed him, the memories he always spoke of wistfully. Meeting them felt like stepping into the chapters of a book I'd only read in fragments. But then Samuel paused, just for a second. It was subtle, but his hesitation hung in the air like a ripple in calm water. He forced a smile. I mean, you could, but honestly, it might be kind of boring for you. I'll probably just be catching up with people you don't know, lots of inside jokes, you know. My stomach nodded. He wasn't wrong, but the way he said it, as if my presence would be a burden, stung. Still, I swallowed the feeling. Whatever makes you happy, I said lightly. Just promise me you'll have fun. He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, Of course. I told myself not to read too much into it, but the hesitation stayed with me, echoing in a place I didn't want to explore. The weekend of the reunion arrived, and Samuel transformed. I watched him iron a new button-up shirt he'd bought just for the occasion. He got his hair cut, spritzed on cologne he hadn't worn in months, and checked his reflection in the mirror more times than I could count. You look amazing, I told him, my voice warm but faintly uneasy. He turned, grinning that boyish grin I'd fallen for years ago. Thanks, babe. Don't wait up, okay. If it runs late, I'll just text. I nodded, hiding the tightness in my chest. He left buzzing with anticipation, and for the first time in years, the apartment felt too quiet, like silence had seeped into the walls. The first night, around 7 p.m., he texted, having fun. Everyone looked so different. I smiled, relieved. At least he thought of me. But then nothing silence until nearly 200 a.m. Sorry, lost track of time. So tired. Talk tomorrow. The second day, his calls came late and short. His voice was effervescent, sparkling in a way I hadn't heard in months. It's amazing, Maggie. It's like no time has passed. We stayed up until 4 a.m., just talking. I forgot how much I missed this. Something in me clenched. What feeling, I wanted to ask. Instead, I laughed softly and said, That's great, Sam. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. But I couldn't shake the image of him surrounded by people who had known him before me, people who represented a version of him I'd never touched. When he returned Sunday evening, he wasn't the same. His smile lingered as if it belonged somewhere else. His eyes darted to his phone every few minutes, a private grin curving his lips. He scrolled through photos, laughing at captions he wouldn't explain. I asked gently, Good weekend. He looked at me like I wasn't standing right there. The best, he murmured. I forgot how much I missed that feeling. I tilted my head. What feeling? He hesitated. Just being around people who really knew me. The me I was before. I forced a smile, but inside a storm brewed. Before what? Before me. That night, as he lay next to me, glowing faintly from the screen's reflection, I stared at the ceiling. His body was close warm, but his spirit felt miles away. I wanted to reach out to pull him back, to tether him to us. But instead, I lay still, listening to the faint clicks of his typing, wondering who was on the other end. For the first time in 4 years, I felt a fracture, a quiet, almost invisible line forming between us. And I couldn't help but wonder if that envelope, the glossy, innocent invitation, wasn't a door to a fun weekend. But the beginning of the end. Samuel returned from his reunion, but the man who walked back through our door didn't feel like the same one who'd left. He carried himself differently, lighter somehow, as if the reunion had breathed life into a version of him that had been asleep. His smile was softer, distracted, and his eyes kept wandering to his phone like a magnet. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. People change after reunions, nostalgia can be intoxicating. but as the days passed, I noticed the shift growing sharper, undeniable. He laughed more, but rarely at things I said. Instead, he chuckled at texts that arrived late at night or at photos he refused to explain. He'd drift into daydreams mid-conversation, grinning at memories I wasn't part of. And one name began surfacing over and over again: Kendra. It started innocently. We were curled up on the couch watching a movie when Samuel muttered, "Kendra was always so ambitious back in college. She had this 5-year plan, 10-year plan, everything mapped out." I paused popcorn halfway to my lips. "You've talked about her before, right?" He shrugged, eyes still glued to the screen. "Maybe. You'd like her. She's sharp. Always pushes people to do better." The words pricked at me, but I forced a smile. "Sounds intense." "Yeah," he said with a soft laugh, but in a good way. Over the next week, Kendra's name kept sliding into our conversations like an uninvited guest. Did I ever tell you how Kendra once convinced half our class to join a startup competition? Kendra just opened her own firm, travels everywhere for clients. Kendra always said I was too smart to just settle into routine. The repetition was maddening, each mention of her name, another stone added to the weight in my chest. One night, while I was chopping vegetables for dinner, Samuel leaned against the counter, his tone oddly serious. "Don't you ever wonder if we're too comfortable?" I set the knife down slowly. "Comfortable isn't bad, Sam. We built this together." He gave me a look that sent chills down my spine. "But are we growing? Don't you want more?" I blinked, thrown off balance. "More what?" "More," he repeated, vague but insistent. "Travel ambition, building something bigger than this." He gestured at our small but cozy apartment, the home we'd both once been proud of. His words cut deeper than I admitted. I stirred the pot in silence, afraid that if I spoke, my voice would crack. That night, unable to sleep, I did something I'd never done before. I looked her up. Kendra. Her social media was a highlight reel of success. Elegant business dinners, airplane windows with city skylines beneath, dresses that looked custom-fitted, smiles that radiated confidence. And there, nestled between the glamour, were photos from the reunion. Samuel and Kendra side by side, their shoulders brushing. His grin, wide unguarded, was one I hadn't seen in years. My stomach twisted, the glow I'd noticed when he came home. It wasn't about nostalgia, it was about her. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of suspicion and aching quiet. Samuel stayed late at work, more often his explanations thin. He stepped outside to take calls, lowered his voice when I walked by, and laughed at things I would never hear. I tried to pretend nothing was wrong, but my chest felt hollow, as though some essential piece of us had already been carved away. And then one evening, while searching for the spare car keys in his bag, my hand brushed against something unexpected. Receipts. 2 of them. From hotels in our city. Dated within the last 2 weeks. My blood ran cold. Samuel never mentioned any hotel stays. Not for work, not for friends, nothing. I stood frozen in our kitchen, the receipts trembling in my hand. And in that instant, the truth I'd been trying so hard to ignore became undeniable. Something had changed. And whatever it was, it had Kendra's name written all over it. I held the hotel receipts in my trembling hands, the paper cutting into my fingers, as if it wanted to make sure I felt the sting twice over. When Samuel came home that night, humming under his breath, loosening his tie like nothing in the world was wrong, I knew I couldn't bury it anymore. I stood in the living room, the receipts clenched so tightly they crumpled into my palm. "Sam," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He froze, keys still in hand. "Yeah." I held the papers up. "Explain these." His smile faltered. For a moment, the silence between us was so loud, I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. He looked at the receipts, then back at me. His jaw tightened. "You went through my bag." I almost laughed, sharp, bitter, humorless. "Don't do that. Don't turn this into me snooping. I was looking for the car keys, the ones you told me to grab. These just happened to be there. So, why hotels? Why here in our city?" His shoulders slumped slightly, but instead of answering, he tried to brush past me toward the kitchen. I blocked his way. "Sam," I said, my voice breaking now. "Please, just tell me." He exhaled heavily like a man carrying too much weight. "It's not what you think." My grip tightened on the receipts. "Then what is it?" He hesitated, eyes darting away. "Kendra was visiting the city for work. We met up." My stomach sank. "In hotels?" "In the lobby at first. Then in her room sometimes. We just talked." My throat went dry. "Talked," I repeated. "That's all." He rubbed the back of his neck, guilt painting his features. "Not physically. I swear, Maggie. Nothing happened. But we connected again. And it felt good. I sank onto the couch, the world tilting around me. His honesty was like a knife cleaner, sharper, almost crueler than a lie. Not physically, I whispered, but emotionally. He sat on the armrest opposite me, burying his face in his hands. His voice cracked when he finally answered. Maybe. I don't know. I'm confused. I stared at him, tears burning my eyes. Confused about us or about her? He lifted his head, eyes glassy. Seeing Kendra again brought back memories. Feelings I thought I'd lost. She reminds me of who I used to be. Ambitious, hungry, alive. And now I'm just, what? 28, working in marketing, coming home every night to Netflix and takeout. That's it. The words slammed into me like waves relentless. I gripped the cushion to steady myself. That's our life, Sam. The one we built together. Since when is that not enough? He shook his head, tears slipping down his cheek. It's not about enough. It's about settling. Kendra always told me I was too smart, too ambitious to settle. And maybe she was right. Something inside me snapped. I stood, my voice shaking but fierce. So what am I? Sam. The consolation prize. The safety net when your big dreams burn out. He flinched. No, Maggie, it's not like that. It is like that. I cut in my tears, finally spilling over. You're sitting here telling me our love, our home, our life together, it's just settling. Do you even hear yourself? He looked at me with tortured eyes, and then he whispered the words that shattered me completely. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd chosen differently. The room went dead silent. I stared at him, my chest aching so badly it hurt to breathe. For a long moment I couldn't speak, and then quietly I forced the words out. Then maybe you should find out. His eyes widened. Maggie, no, that's not what I meant. Yes, it is, I said firmly, though. My voice trembled. You've been comparing us, comparing me to some fantasy of who you think you could have been. You're not happy here. You're not fulfilled. You think I'm holding you back, so don't. Don't let me hold you back. Tears streamed down his face as he reached for me, but I stepped back. Are you breaking up with me? He whispered. I swallowed hard. I'm telling you to choose. And if your heart is already halfway with Kendra, then you've already made that choice. We sat in silence for hours after that. He cried. I didn't. I was too numb, too hollow, too broken to muster the release of tears. By dawn, the decision was clear. I need to see where this goes with her, Samuel finally said, his voice hoarse. I nodded, my body cold. Then go. But don't expect to come back when you realize what you've lost. That's not fair, he whispered. What's not fair, I shot back, is asking me to be your backup plan while you chase someone else. He moved out the following weekend. I helped him pack. My hands folded his shirts, zipped his suitcase, placed his toothbrush in a plastic bag. It was the cruelest kindness I could offer, helping him leave me behind. When the door finally clicked shut, I stood in the empty apartment, staring at the space he used to fill. The silence pressed down on me, and for the first time I wondered if I'd ever been enough. The day Samuel left the apartment didn't feel like home anymore. His absence wasn't just a missing pair of shoes by the door or the empty side of the bed, it was everywhere. His scent lingered in the closet. His laughter still echoed faintly in the living room. Every drawer I opened seemed to mock me with the hollow space where his things had been. I told myself I was fine. I told everyone else I was fine, but inside I was unraveling. The first few weeks were brutal. Nights stretched endlessly, and mornings mocked me with silence. I woke up half expecting to hear him making coffee, only to find cold countertops and a kitchen that had forgotten how to breathe. The smallest things became triggers, a TV show. We used to watch the restaurant down the street where we celebrated birthdays, even the sound of his ringtone when it buzzed once on my phone by accident. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I hated him. I missed him. And worst of all, I hated that I missed him. But somewhere in that storm of grief, something unexpected began to happen. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects, staying late, volunteering for tasks no one else wanted. At first it was distraction. Then gradually it became purpose. My boss noticed. Compliments turned into trust. Trust turned into responsibility, and before long, I was promoted to senior coordinator. For the first time in years, I had an office of my own. It didn't erase the pain, but it reminded me I had worth beyond being someone's partner. I also found myself back at the gym. At first, it was just to burn off the restless energy that kept me awake at night. But slowly lifting weights and running miles became more than exercise, it was therapy. Each bead of sweat felt like another shard of heartbreak being pushed out of my body. And then there was photography. I'd loved it in high school. even toyed with the idea of pursuing it professionally, before life steered me toward stability. For years, my camera gathered dust in the closet. Now I picked it up again. Through the lens, I started to see the world differently. Light falling across a cafe window, a child laughing in the park, my reflection tired but determined staring back from glass. Photography gave me something Samuel never could, a way to frame life on my own terms. Still, he haunted me. Mutual friends couldn't help but mention him, how he and Kendra looked inseparable, jetting off to new cities sipping wine in rooftop bars. Their photos littered social media, two silhouettes against sunsets, their smiles painted to perfection. I tried not to look, but late at night, loneliness got the better of me, and each photo carved a deeper wound. I imagined them laughing over private jokes, her hand slipping into his, her voice whispering promises I'd once believed were mine. But then, whispers began to shift. At first it was small. A friend mentioned Samuel had quit his job to move closer to Kendra's city. Another hinted at arguments, tension over money. Someone else muttered that Kendra's firm wasn't as successful as it appeared, that her glamorous lifestyle was financed by credit, not profit. And slowly the cracks appeared. One friend confided to me, "Maggie, honestly, he doesn't look happy. He looks tired, like he's chasing something he'll never catch." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, all I felt was sorrow. Because beneath the betrayal, beneath the anger, part of me still remembered the man who used to bring me tea when I was sick, who danced with me in the kitchen at midnight, who once looked at me like I was the only person in the world. But that man was gone, and the one left behind had chosen a fantasy over reality. By the end of that year, I realized something important. Yes, Samuel had left me. Yes, he had broken me in ways I never thought possible. But in his absence, I was rebuilding. Piece by piece, I was rising not for him, not to prove him wrong, but for me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just Samuel's partner. I was Maggie Chapman. And though I didn't know it yet, this rise was only the beginning, because Samuel's fall was already on its way. By the time spring rolled around, Samuel's perfect world with Kendra began to crack wide open. At first, it was just whispers. Friends who'd once gushed about their glamorous trips now spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid their words would echo back to him. "Kendra's firm isn't what it looks like," one said over coffee. "She's basically freelancing with a fancy name. Half her clients don't even pay on time." Another muttered, "Samuel quit his job to move in with her, but she doesn't exactly want a partner. She wants an accessory, someone to match her image." And when I accidentally scrolled past one of her posts late one night, the truth was written on his face. Samuel wasn't glowing anymore. He looked gaunt eyes shadowed. His smile stretched too thin to be real. It didn't take long for the rumors to solidify into facts. Kendra was controlling, especially about money. Her credit cards bought the suits, the dinners, the trips. Samuel, once proud of his independence, now leaned on her for everything. And she made sure he knew it. She belittles him, another friend admitted, calls him unambitious, says she needs someone who can keep up. The irony burned. Samuel had left me because he didn't want comfort, didn't want settling. And yet here he was, drowning under the weight of someone else's ambition. Then came the blow that shattered the facade completely. One night, a mutual friend called me hesitant. "Maggie, I thought you should know. Kendra's been cheating." My breath caught. Cheating? Yeah, with one of her exes, someone she reconnected with at her own college reunion. She didn't even hide it that well. The irony was so sharp, it almost made me laugh. Samuel had left me chasing the thrill of someone who represented his what if, and now she had done the same to him. A month later, the fallout hit full force. Kendra kicked him out. No savings, no backup plan, no job to fall back on. He'd burned bridges at his old company, abandoned the friends who had once supported him, and now he was left stranded homeless in a city that had once felt like a dream. For a man who'd once lectured me about settling, he had settled into something far worse, desperation. That's when the messages began. "Hey Maggie, I know things ended badly, but I just wanted to see how you're doing." I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. Deleted it. "The next night, Maggie, I made a mistake. Please, can we talk?" Delete. Then Kevin, no. Kendra. My chest tightened at the slip my brain made. "Kendra was terrible. You were right about everything. You were the one who cared. Please answer." Delete. Soon it wasn't just texts. The calls started. At first I let them ring, staring at his name flashing on my screen. Then I stopped picking up altogether. Each voicemail was more desperate than the last. "Maggie, I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I can't stop thinking about you. You're the only one who ever really loved me. I see that now. Please, I just need to hear your voice. I have nowhere else to go. I'm staying on couches living out of a bag. I'm not asking you to take me back. I just need someone to talk to. I deleted them all. My finger hovered over the button each time, but I pressed it anyway. Then came the pressure. His friends called voices coded in guilt. Maggie, he's sorry. He's learned his lesson. Can't you at least talk to him? His mother called, her voice breaking. Maggie, sweetheart, I know my son hurt you, but he's lost. You were the best thing that ever happened to him. Can't you find compassion in your heart? Each plea tore at me, reopening wounds I thought I'd stitched closed. Because compassion wasn't the issue. I did feel for him. But compassion is not the same as reconciliation. And yet, a part of me wavered. Late at night, lying awake in the quiet, I wondered if I was being too harsh. After all we'd shared 4 years together, maybe I owed him at least a conversation. Maybe. But just as the doubt began to gnaw at me, life made the choice for me. Because one afternoon, after months of silence, Samuel stopped waiting for my answer. He showed up at my office door, and the look in his eyes told me everything the man who once left me glowing with nostalgia and ambition had been reduced to a shadow. I was having one of those rare good days. The project I'd been leading at work finally wrapped, and my boss praised me in front of the entire team, and for the first time in months, I felt light, free, almost happy. That's when I heard it. Maggie. The sound of my name froze me. I looked up from my desk, and there he was. Samuel. He didn't look like the man who had left me for Kendra, glowing with nostalgia and possibility. He looked wrecked. His hair was unkempt, shorter than before, but uneven, as if cut in a rush. His clothes were wrinkled, his frame thinner, his face pale. Even his eyes, once so bright, were clouded with exhaustion and regret. For a moment, all I saw was the ghost of the man I once loved. And then reality crashed back in. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice cold, though my chest ached. I told them I was an old friend, he said quietly, that I wanted to surprise you. I gestured to the chair across from me. Fine, sit, say what you need to say, and then leave. The second he sat down, his composure broke. His shoulders hunched, his face crumpled, and tears spilled down his cheeks. Maggie, please, he whispered. I know I don't deserve to be here, but I have nothing left. I lost everything. Kendra was... His voice cracked. She was terrible, controlling, cruel, and she cheated on me. You were right about her, about everything. I forced myself not to flinch. He leaned forward, desperate, his hands trembling. You're the one who cared, the one who really loved me. I see that now. I was blind, Maggie. Please, give me another chance. Let me prove I can do better. I stared at him, anger and sorrow colliding inside me. Do you hear yourself? I asked softly. You didn't come back because you love me. You came back because you're broken, because you need someone to fix you. That's not true. It is, I cut in. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. You don't want me. You want security. You want comfort, because your fantasy crashed and burned, and now you remember what I gave you. But I am not your backup plan, Samuel. His tears came harder, his voice cracking. I know I hurt you, but people make mistakes. Don't you believe in forgiveness? I forgave you a long time ago, I said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't mean I let you back into my life. You chose her. You left me. And you don't get to rewrite history just because it didn't work out. The air between us grew heavy, thick with finality. And then the door opened. Maggie. I turned, and there he was, Daniel. He stepped inside, holding 2 coffees, smiling until his eyes landed on Samuel. He paused, reading the tension instantly. Sorry, didn't know you were in a meeting. Samuel blinked, confusion crossing his face. Who's... I rose from my chair, crossing to Daniel and taking the coffee he offered. The warmth of the cup in my hand grounded me. Samuel. I said, my tone calm, steady. This is Daniel, my boyfriend. Daniel gave Samuel a polite nod. Nice to meet you. Samuel's face went pale. He looked at me, his voice barely a whisper. You're... with someone else. Yes, I said simply. Is it serious? His voice cracked, desperate for any thread to cling to. It is, I answered firmly. And whether it was or wasn't, it's not your concern anymore. He sat there, stunned, tears dripping onto his hands. You moved on, he murmured, more to himself than to me. I had to, I replied, because you made sure I had no choice. Samuel looked up at me, eyes raw, pleading. Maggie, please. Don't say this is it. Don't say 4 years meant nothing. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. 4 years meant everything. That's why it hurt so much when you threw it away. But that chapter is closed. There is no going back. The silence stretched until he finally stood. His movements were slow, heavy, like a man walking through water. He lingered by the door, his back to me. Then softly he said, "For what it's worth, I really am sorry, and I really did love you." I swallowed hard. I know. And I hope you figure things out. I really do. But it won't be with me. He nodded once, then left. The door closed. And just like that, the ghost was gone. I stood frozen, heart pounding, until Daniel touched my shoulder gently. "Everything okay?" he asked. I exhaled shakily, finally allowing the tears I'd been holding back to slip free. "Yeah, it's just someone from my past trying to revisit old decisions." Daniel squeezed my hand, his presence grounding me in a way Samuel never had. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head. "Not really." "Then how about dinner instead?" he smiled. I let out a shaky laugh. "Always." We left the office together. I didn't look back. When the door closed behind Samuel, I thought I'd feel shattered, that I'd collapse into grief the way I did months ago when he first walked out of our home with his suitcase. But instead I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no pain. Just a strange, quiet relief, like an old wound that finally stopped bleeding. In the weeks that followed, Samuel's presence faded further and further from my life. Friends told me he'd moved back in with his parents. He was looking for work again, starting from scratch. Some pitied him. Others shook their heads, calling it karma. Me, I didn't feel anything at all. Not hatred, not vengeance, just distance. Because the truth was simple, his life wasn't mine to carry anymore. Meanwhile, Daniel and I grew closer. Our relationship wasn't flashy. No rooftop champagne photos or curated travel reels. We cooked together, burned pancakes, laughed over stupid jokes, and took long walks at dusk. He didn't make me feel like I had to compete with some fantasy version of myself. With him, I could just be Maggie. One evening, as I watched him pour wine into 2 glasses, I realized how different it felt. With Samuel, love had been a constant test. Was I ambitious enough, exciting enough, worthy enough? With Daniel, love wasn't a test. It was a home. Still, sometimes late at night, memories returned. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling and wonder, what if I had fought harder? What if I had begged Samuel to stay? What if I had opened the door when he came crawling back? But each what if collapsed under the same truth. Someone who truly valued me wouldn't have risked losing me in the first place. And someone who saw me as settling never really saw me at all. That's when it clicked. The lesson I hadn't realized I was living all along. You can't make someone choose you. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much history you share, no matter how hard you fight, you can only choose yourself. And sometimes choosing yourself means letting go, even when your heart once clung to the idea of forever. Samuel thought he was trading up when he chose Kendra. He thought ambition and glamour would outweigh stability and love. Instead, he traded away the one person who loved him, not for who he could become, but for who he already was. That loss wasn't mine to carry, it was his, and I refused to let his mistake define me. Now, as I sit here telling you this story, Daniel's laughter drifts in from the kitchen, mingling with the smell of pasta sauce simmering on the stove. My camera rests on the table beside me, memory card full of snapshots from a life I built on my own terms. I am not the woman I was when Samuel left me. I am stronger, braver, whole. And above all, I am chosen. Chosen by myself long before anyone else.